Hey guys, Kathy Iconis here with QBO Chat. Very excited to do this demo today, Tax 1099. I have been using them for the last several years and love them. So I was super excited to have them with us. Today, Ed Pratt is going to be giving us a demo and everything we need to know about Tax 1099. I'll be manning the questions with some people on his team, and with all of that, I'm going to turn it on over to Ed.
All right, thanks, Kathy, and hi, everyone. Thanks for letting me be here today and share some information about the upcoming 1099 filing season and how Tax 1099 can help you go through that. I am going to start with just a real quick presentation, though, a little bit of an overview on a few things related to the 1099 filing season. This is me, in case I haven't met you at a conference or anywhere else that we might have been gathering to talk about QuickBooks. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for ZenWork Incorporated, which is the parent company of Tax 1099. I've been here for over 6 years. The founder of the company and I actually worked together at ADP, where a lot of my former compliance experience comes into to place. I've done compliance work with clients across multiple industries and across multiple types of compliance between tax, human resources, payroll, and so forth. So I've been doing that for a while, and specifically working with Tax 1099 for the last 6+ years. So just want to talk about a couple of things on the federal and state tax filing side as we get started today. You might have heard something about a new form coming out, so I just want to clear up any confusion there might be on that. I want to talk a little bit about how you can get forms in the hands of your vendors or your clients' vendors, as the case may be. I'm going to talk to you about what's in our platform and how to use the Tax 1099 platform. And as Kathy said, if you have questions as we're going through, the questions box down in the bottom right corner of the little widget for GoToWebinar is a great place to put those. We've got Bhavas from my sales team with us, and he'll be able to answer questions, or if he can't answer the question, then we'll cover it as we get to the end of the session here. Unless Kathy or Bhavas want to poke in and ask a question during the middle, that works too. So regarding federal e-filing, and I'm specifically thinking about 1099 miscellaneous forms, that's mostly what our users file with us. There's not a whole lot that's changed for the 2019 tax season, and that's because the 2020 tax season is when something big is going to change. You might have seen some headlines from the IRS if you're on all those IRS communications about the form 1099 NEC for non-employee compensation. I don't know, I've had probably 24 people ask me in the last couple months if we're ready for the 1099 NEC, and I have to tell them, no, we're not, because it doesn't exist yet. It's still a draft form that's out there. It's going to be filed for the 2020 tax season, so starting January 1st, that's when you'll be working into the payments that will be reported in January 2021 for the 2020 tax season. And basically, if you recall back the last 2 or 3 years, the IRS moved box 7 amounts being reportable. They used to be reportable on e-file March 31st and on paper filing February 28th, and they backed that date up to January 31st. Caused a lot of consternation in the payroll and accounting world because of moving that deadline back. As accountants and bookkeepers, you guys are probably familiar with that client who never has stuff ready on time, and the March 31st e-file date was a blessing, because even if that client didn't have all their stuff ready, you could get most everything done, and then you could just adjust as you needed to. You could file with Tax 1099. You could schedule the e-filing out for a future date, and then you could come back in and make edits as you needed to. But when that January 31st date came into being, it really took away a lot of that flexibility and made it so that you had to do a lot more corrected forms. We've seen a significant increase in corrected forms the last couple of years. Now, the IRS did that for a good reason, of course, trying to prevent fraudulent tax refunds from being issued. but it did cause some problems. One of the things that we did and that other e-file authorized e-file providers did is we split out the Box 7 reporting. So even though you might submit just one set of forms to us, we've been sending the Box 7 amounts separately from, say, the Box 1 amounts if you have property managers and such. And that's the way the IRS had asked us to do it because they knew that they were going to be coming out with this new form. So next year, you'll be seeing a lot more about the 1099 NEC. We'll be in touch with all of our clients regarding the 1099 NEC and what the new 1099 miscellaneous form will look like, because when you remove Box 7, everything else kind of shifts up a box, and they've had a couple of boxes on there the last few years, Box 11 and 12, that aren't really boxes. They used to be, but they're not anymore, but they still keep them on the form. So those are going to go away. There's going to be some changes that will come. But again, this is next year, so if you've heard about it, that's great, but you don't have to worry about it until you get into the 2020 filing season in January 2021. The automatic extensions, again, going back to that Box 7 January 31st date, the IRS removed the automatic extensions last year. So they decided that you could no longer get that automatic extension. This applies to W-2s as well. You can still get automatic extensions for other boxes, Box 1, Box 3, Box 14, what have you, but you can't get the automatic extension for Box 7. They do have some safe harbors, things like federally declared disaster areas and such. So if you look at Form 8809, that is will tell you what is applicable for those safe harbors, but they're not allowed to be e-filed for the 8809 for Box 7 or W-2. It's something you have to actually send in to the IRS to make that request separately, and they don't guarantee that you will get an extension on those. So just something to be aware of if you have clients who are particularly in those federally declared disaster areas where that might be something you need to have them apply for. State filing, as you may be aware, for Tax 1099, we do state filing for miscellaneous and W-2 forms. A lot of states are participating in the combined federal state filing program. From our perspective, that's the easiest thing possible because we send the information on your behalf one time. We send it to the IRS. When we send that to the IRS, it's got a little checkbox on it, and that checkbox says combined federal state filing. And that way the IRS knows to send that on to the state. There's about 32 states that participate in the combined federal state filing program, and a lot of the big ones do, California, New York, and so on. What we've seen recently, though, is that a lot of states, and not a lot, but some states, are beginning to either drop out of the program or they're beginning to require a separate filing even though they participate in the combined federal state filing. And the reason for that is that the state doesn't actually get the information from the IRS until June or July after you filed it in January. So as you can imagine, for states who are trying to fight fraudulent tax refunds, that can be a problem because they can't reconcile the information on the miscellaneous form back to the actual income reported by the person. So the IRS really needs to tighten that process up. I was at one of the tax forums not long ago, and they were talking about this. They're aware that they need to get this information in the hands of the states earlier, but they just don't have the budget to do it on the IRS side. Other things are taking precedence right now. So hopefully they'll get it tightened up and states will continue on. If you do have clients who are in a state or clients who pay vendors who are in a state that requires a separate filing, these would be states like Pennsylvania or Oregon or any of the dozen or so different states that require separate filing. We can handle that too, though, and I'll show you what that looks like inside the system. So we do track all that requirement, and we actually auto-identify based on the recipient's address if that should be a filing to that state. Now, that recipient's address may not be accurate. They may be living in a state but worked in another state, and so you have the flexibility to come in and modify that. But we identify that for you as you go through, so that you're at least aware that there is a tax reporting requirement for a state based on the recipient's address. As far as getting the information to those vendors, to the contractors for yourself or your client, there's really two ways. There's the paper way, and then there's the electronic way. So we offer a print and mail service that you can use within Tax 1099. So we can do that mailing for you. You can also print the copy yourself and mail it. We print out onto plain white paper, so you don't have to buy any special forms. And we just put those into double window number 10 envelopes. So just do a trifold and stick it in the envelope, paste a little or stamp a little note on the outside that says important tax information, and you're good to go. On the electronic side, we have electronic delivery by email and through a portal. So we've got a couple of different options there. A couple things to know about that for electronic delivery. The IRS requires that you do have permission. And when I say you, it may be your client that really needs to have the permission gathered from the vendor to send that information electronically. You can send an email to capture that. There's a little bit of information that's contained in some of the IRS publications around the general instructions for information returns that talks about what you need to have in there. And we can handle that for you. If you're using our portal, then we actually solicit that opt-in as well when we send out the notice about the delivery of the form. So we do have a few new things going on in Tax 1099. For the most part, I would say the system has stayed the same. We spent a lot of our time this year working on back-end infrastructure, so things that are invisible to the user, but just things that will help get through that last week of the filing season. This year, in particular, the deadline is on a Friday, which means everybody has a full week there going in to the deadline, and so we'll get a lot of volume on that last Monday through Friday of January. So we spent a significant amount of time and resources this year making sure that that the platform can manage the volume that we're anticipating coming. We've been growing every year, and so we want to make sure we're ready for all of that while maintaining all the security that that we need to apply to your vendors' social security numbers, to your clients' names and addresses, and so forth. So we spent most of our time this year doing that. We did, however, add a few forms. Some of these forms, I know I hadn't heard of a couple of these forms, but you may deal with them on a day-to-day basis. You may never have seen these forms before, but these are just forms that came to us mostly through accounting firms. We have about 25 of the top 100 accounting firms who use our platform, and so they will get involved with some companies that have different needs than our standard clients may have. And so that's where most of these came from: the 1097 BTC, the 1099 OID, the W2G. The Form 1042, which goes with the 1042S, it's kind of your summary. You can think of like a 940 form, an annual summary for the 1042S forms, which are paid to foreign vendors through U.S. funds. And then we've added a couple of Puerto Rico forms. About a year and a half ago, I think, we started offering a couple of Puerto Rico forms, and we've expanded that by a couple more this year if you have clients who are in Puerto Rico and need to do that filing. We also offer something called enterprise accounts. So these are generally for larger firms who need to have multiple people involved in the process. These are some of the more robust features that you may need. So we have user management. You can go in, you can specify additional users on your account. You can set them up for specific functions in the system. You may want to have somebody who only does data entry. They don't actually submit the forms, and then somebody else reviews those forms. So you can set those users up to only access those pieces of the system. You can set them up to access only certain clients of yours, and then the workflow will go from one user to the next so that you get that authorization, a second set of eyeballs on the form before it goes into submission. They each have their own login, and we track the actions separately, so you know who did what in the software. And then we have 10 matches as well. So I'll talk a little bit about 10 matching as we go into the software here in a minute, but we include some free 10 matches as part of the enterprise account there. So let's take a look around. See first if we had any questions that had come in that I could answer during this time. It looks like we're all good there, so good. So I am showing you Tax 1099 here. This is my dashboard. I'm logged in as a test user, but it is in the actual live platform up here. I'm logged in as one of the enterprise users. So just kind of for general orientation purposes, we have a left navigation menu. So if I click on any one of these triangles, you can see what you might need to do. I can create a new form, or I can go to forms that have already been submitted and print recopies of those. I've got my people, so these are my clients, my payers, and then underneath each of my payers, I have my recipients. We even have a method to copy the recipients out. We have a number of imports, and so one of the reasons that we're here today is because we are an app in the QuickBooks Online App Center, part of the QuickBooks Online ecosystem. We have been part of their ecosystem for years, at least since I started in 2013. Then I think in 2014, 15, when they moved over into their more formalized app enterprise that they've got, we were one of the first companies that came online with them and came on board into their app center. So we're part of the app center there. We also, though, have a number of other ways that you can get data into Tax 1099. So Bill.com, similar to QuickBooks Online, we're part of the Bill.com app center, just part of their ecosystem. You can actually come in from Bill.com or from Tax 1099 and bring in the data through either of those areas. We work with QuickBooks Desktop too. We have a relationship with Intuit where we are their preferred e-file provider for QuickBooks Desktop, and we have 3 different ways that you can get information in through the desktop. As you may know, the desktop doesn't always play well with cloud-based software, and so we have a plugin and a web connector, so 2 kind of automated methods for putting that information in based on what your system might look like. One may work better than the other. And then if you have clients who may have been resistant to upgrading their QuickBooks Desktop and they're still on the 2013 version because they're just stubborn and they don't want to move up, and they don't want to pay the money to upgrade, we have a 2-file method. So you can just pull down 2 reports directly from QuickBooks Desktop and you can upload those into Tax 1099. We work with Xero as well, so another app that we plug into. BQE Core just did their API this year, and again, we were one of the first that they invited to be part of that process. So if you have clients who are using BQE Core, we're there as well. Zoho Books, Sage Intacct, Entrada's a property software. We've got a light integration with some of the FreshBooks tools. So just a number of ways to get the information in here into Tax 1099. Aside from those integration partners, we also have spreadsheets where you can pull the information in, and then the manual entry. And I'm going to cover some of those as we go through. We do track all the history for you, so you can see what you filed, when you filed it. If you're using a prepay account, you've got that here. State filing, W8, W9. I'll talk a little bit about that as we go. So lots of different historical information that we have here. You'll see this notices. That's an enterprise-only feature. And then reports. You may want to get information out of the system for various purposes. Now, one thing may be to bill your clients. You want to get paid for what work you're doing there. So the submission history report will give you line by line, row by row, what you did for each submission for a client, and so or for all your clients. And so you can pull that out and you can use that as a method to see, well, for this client, I mailed 10 forms, or I e-filed 10 forms, I mailed 10 forms, and so I want to charge them X. For that client, I e-filed 25 forms, but I didn't do any mailing, so I want to charge them Y, something a little bit different there. And we just have another of other reports that you can get out of the system. Got our support here. You'll see the widget down in the bottom right corner for chatting, getting in touch with our knowledge base. All that is there and available to you as well. So again, I'm here on the dashboard, just kind of went through the left menus there. Here, you can see my 2019 filings were defaulting to the current year. But if you've been using us in multiple years, you've got the ability to flip back and see what you did for a client there. So if I just wanted to put in one of my clients testing 1095C, so I can limit it by that. I can limit it by what's been filed, accepted, so forth and so on. So you've got lots of filtering that you can do out here on the dashboard, so you can see what you might have done. So this client, I haven't done anything for this year, so that might be a clue to me that I need to go in and do something for that particular client. And down here you can see, let me get rid of this testing, but down here at the bottom you can see the various statuses. So we color code those for you so you can just kind of at a glance see these are all not submitted, and so I might need to go in and view that so that I can do that final submission for that particular client. So with that in mind, let's go through a couple of different processes for getting information into Tax 1099. And I'm actually going to start with my people side as opposed to with a form side. So, if you think about what we'd like clients to do, right? I know they don't do this necessarily, but what we'd like for them to do is we would like for them to give a W-9 to a vendor before they pay them, and we'd like for them to collect that W-9. We'd like for them to make sure the information is good on that W-9, and then put the information into QuickBooks or Bill.com, and then pay the check. So kind of a rigorous process that we'd like for them to go through. We know they don't do that, but that's the process we'd like for them to go through. So in Tax 1099, we've built the software out so that you can actually do that process from within Tax 1099. So I'm going to pull up one of my other fake clients here. Class Act is one that I use a lot here. And so we have inside of Tax 1099 a request system for W-9s. Let me find somebody who doesn't have one. Here we go. So this guy right here, I've not requested a W-9 for this person. So I can click this W-9 request and send a W-9 out to the vendor. I just need the email address for that to go out to them. They get a link, and then they open up that link, and it takes them to basically a PDF copy of the IRS version of the form. We're on the current version of that W-9 form. They type in their information, they sign it. If they're on a tablet or an iPhone, they can sign it with their finger. Otherwise, they sign it with their mouse. And when they submit it, it comes in, and you can see this one has completed the W-9. And so it comes into you here inside of Tax 1099. He said, waiting for it to populate here. There you go. When it comes into Tax 1099, this is an old one, and I've gotten here. There you go. So I've got that W-9 form here. I can see what type they are. If they are entering a business name, if they're entering a disregarded entity name, I can see what entity type they've got here. I can see what their address is. I can see what their taxpayer identification number is. I can see the signature, and generally you'll see the date here, but again, this is an older one, but the date would be applied there for when they completed that form. So that gives you the ability to collect that information straight here within Tax 1099. Again, you can do that before you send that person a check, or if your client can do that before that person before they issue a check, that is ideal. Something else that we added last year is the ability to sync this information back to other softwares. So I can sync it back to QuickBooks Online here. And what that does is it will go to QuickBooks Online. It will look at your vendor records. If it recognizes you've already got that tax ID there, it'll just plug in this W-9. It'll attach the PDF to the vendor record in QuickBooks Online. If it says, oh no, this doesn't exist over there in QuickBooks Online, it'll create that record for you in QuickBooks Online. It'll also attach the W-9 there as well during that time. And then you'll have the same information in both places. So it's synced up directly to QuickBooks Online. So we do have a charge for the W-9 collection. We don't have a charge for syncing it back to your software. If you want to sync it back to QuickBooks Online or Bill.com or Xero, those are available to you. So we've got W-9s, we have W-8s as well. So if you have people with foreign vendors, those are there as well. But this is a way that you can go about collecting the information and then pushing it back over to QuickBooks Online to make sure that you've got the right data and you're writing the checks properly out of QuickBooks Online. So then once I get my QuickBooks Online data set up, and I'm making my payments out of QuickBooks Online, I've got everything coordinated in QuickBooks Online, I can use our QuickBooks Online tool here, or I can come in through the App Center, and I can bring it down either way so that I am connected with QuickBooks Online. So let's see if I can remember what my password is here. Hang on just a second for me.
I like that.
Yeah, it's always it's not always easy. Sometimes it's a challenge to remember what your password is.
So, the best thing about these demos is that I always I always learn something new. And I'm so excited about that sync to QBO. I just did it for last year for a client, so I'm playing around with it.
Excellent. I'm glad you're able to play with it while we're doing the work here. Oh, good.
So if I have any questions, I'll ask now.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we've got when I use GoToWebinar, it always slows my computer down here. So we're just waiting for the App Center to clock in here with us.
Or,
Um,
we hope QBO is doing okay. I'm in QBO, so
Right.
that should be okay today.
Yeah.
I know we had some issues last week.
This is one of those where if you test it beforehand, you may be good, but if you don't test it beforehand, it might work better. That didn't work for me
Yeah.
today. So let's see. Let me try it one more time.
Okay.
It shifted. It's on a different side now. Yeah. Let's see if I can do it from over here. Sometimes it works better going a different direction.
So there was a question if you could import from multiple QPO companies, and I took that one over and said yes because I do it. So I knew that answer for sure, and I shared that with everyone. And then there was another one about what is the process for connecting QB desktop files. I'm trying to see what.
I can show you the QB desktop file. So, and I'm sorry, I just kind of went through that pretty quickly here because I wanted
You're
to make
fine.
sure it was working. But um, this, when you pull up the App Center, you can go into tax1099.com, click the Get App. It's going to push it over here for you. I'm going to go into my accountant version, and because we're not really accountants, we only have one company set up there. You might have more though, and so to
Don't
Kathy's
forget
point.
that check mark of install for your own firm too.
Right. You can do that as well, and I'm just going to skip that for now. But you can do that certainly. But you would have more clients down there, I'm sure. When you click next, it's going to go through an authorization process. Oh, maybe. There we go. So let's see. Oh, it's not letting me sign in. Oh, it's because I did Tech Atlantis. That's why. It's under my old email address. Let me let me do it this way. Live demonstration. It's
It always
always
happens.
interesting. Yeah. Now Chrome's not going. There we go. So I think if I log in ahead of time, I'll be ready to go here. Go. But we do recognize that email address. So generally, we ask that you've got the same email address on both sides, so that it brings it over better for you. And that may be why it's causing me this problem here. But I just did this the other day, and so I know it works, even though you've got different email addresses. Well, it's
But
easy.
on the import, when it gets to that point, then you're just mapping information or what?
Yeah, so you've got, and that's what I want to show you. So we're actually working with Intuit right now because when you go through your 1099 process with Intuit or with QuickBooks Online, you can map over there on the QuickBooks Online side. And so in the past, they weren't displaying the mapping information to us. They were kind of hiding that information from us. So I don't know if it's because they've got their own system or what, but they weren't letting us see that mapping information. So when you brought it in to Tax 1099, you had to go through and kind of redo the mapping process here inside
Mm,
of Tax 1099. And so we're still working through that process to make it so that we have visibility to your company mapping information, so that you don't have to do it twice. But what I'm going to show you is going to show you doing it twice here. So I just went ahead and created a company under my other email address here, and I'm connected to QuickBooks here. I've got my company. Now you can do this year or the prior couple of years. I'm going to click proceed. Good. So I figured no one's done an update there. So let me do last year's information. It'll show you the same process. And this is what I'm talking about. Right now, we've got this mapping page here that lets you say, all right, well, I've got these accounts, and obviously you would have more accounts. They're all going to go to box 7, or I've got office expenses that are going to go to box 7, and I've got legal and professional that are going to go to box 14 because I know they're actually gross proceeds as opposed to legal and professional fees. So however you want to map that information, you're able to bring that over. And I'm just going to click on. Oh, that's because I've got it selected here. Can't select it in 2 places, so that's a good check there. And so I've got it selected. When I click next, it's going to go through, it's going to review my QuickBooks Online company file. It's going to bring over my company information. And so I can see a little red dot there, meaning that I'm missing something from my company information. And it's going to give me green dots for my vendors if I've got everything selected correctly. You see we did some testing with the various types of names because you have multiple names over in QuickBooks Online. You've got company and company name and first, middle, last. You've got the vendor name and so forth. So we've done some testing to see what pulls over here. On the company, because I've got a red dot there, it's going to ask me for to fill out the information that I didn't have filled out before. And so the phone number is required for your client. It's something that on a 1099 form has to be printed, and so we print that on the form there. And so just put in a phone number, click update, and it's going to get rid of my red dot for me. And this is real-time live, and so basically what we're doing here is just validating that information to see if you have anything that doesn't conform with IRS standards. It's going to be a problem when we go through the process to send this to the IRS. So just as an example, I could have a red dot here for this vendor because I could be missing a zip code. It just didn't get entered when I created the record. There could be various issues that may come up depending on the cleanliness of the data that you have on your client's QuickBooks Online file. And so this presents me with a grid where I can go in, I can validate the information, I can compare with my reporting over in QuickBooks, and I can say, yes, that's the total amount of payments that I made. I can review each one of the vendors and say, yes, those are the total amount, those are the amount for each one of those vendors. If I find a discrepancy, maybe I charged something in QuickBooks Online and I put it as a credit card payment, but it should have been entered as a check payment. And so it just picked the wrong line there. I can come in here, I can add the information here. So I can edit this dollar figure if it's something I need to do. I can also go back to QuickBooks Online, I can fix it in QuickBooks Online, and then I can re-import. So I can go through the import process again. But if you're pushing the deadline, you may want to fix it here, submit it, and make sure you get it done, and then later go back to QuickBooks Online and fix that information before you close the books for the year. So you can also change the category. So if this one shouldn't have been box 7 for whatever reason, I should have done it to box 1, box 3, whatever, I can change that here as well. So lots of different things you can do here to make sure your data is correct when you're pushing it into Tax 1099. But once you're satisfied, and generally speaking, if you've done everything right in your QuickBooks Online, you've already got your books set over there, it's good, you're going to come over here and you're going to have, maybe 1 or 2 red dots, but mostly green. You're going to fix those, and then you're going to be ready to move on into the next page. And so as I go through and click my next page, I selected those 4 vendors. I'm clicking next. I'm going to see 4 out of 4 records uploaded successfully. And so on this page is where I can go through and I can submit these for e-file. I can request that we mail them out. If I have email addresses and that recipient is willing to receive an electronic copy, I can send them an email to this recipient so that they get that copy. I talked about TIN matching real briefly. So TIN matching, what that allows us to do is go to the IRS database and validate that the taxpayer identification number that's entered here matches with the name that's entered here. And so we just validate that directly to the IRS database, whether it's a social or an EIN or even an ITIN. We can validate that information and provide you back a yes, that was right, or a no, that was wrong. And that will just give you an indication that that your client may have an issue coming up. If it's a rejected TIN, then they may get a notice from the IRS later that says this is a problem. We need you to find out what the actual correct taxpayer identification number is. I talked about doing the schedule date filing. So because I had to bring this in from 2018, you're seeing it's giving me today's date. But in a real scenario where I'm pulling in my 2019 tax information, I can schedule the date for all the vendor e-files, and I'll show you that in a minute what it'll look like. But I can schedule that out for January 31st or March 31st, depending on what box that I have. And then we also pulled in the state filing. So I've got two people here who are in North Carolina. North Carolina has a separate filing requirement. And so we identify that those recipients are in North Carolina. If I happen to know that this person lives in North Carolina, but they work somewhere else and maybe the requirement doesn't apply to them, I can edit their form. I can remove that. I can put in the proper state that should be reported. Or maybe they just moved to North Carolina, but when they did the work, they were living in Pennsylvania, and so they need to report it to Pennsylvania. Whatever the situation is, you can always edit from this screen and go in and work on that specific form. So if I just click that, I'll show you what that looks like. This is our form view, and so this is basically the 1099 miscellaneous form. So you get a good representation of what it will look like. If this person who is now living in North Carolina actually performed their work, let's say they moved from California to North Carolina, when I click California, it takes that state requirement off because California participates in the combined federal state filing program. And so when I save that, then I'll no longer have that North Carolina checkbox when I come into my final screen here. So again, just for the state filing, we're just trying to help you out as much as possible by identifying recipients who are living in a state that has some sort of additional requirement and giving you the opportunity to file to that state. And so that's what that would look like right here. And so if I just check these guys here, I'm going to check USPS mail here as well. I'm going to click next. I'm not actually going to check these out, but just going to show you what the next page looks like. So you can do a couple of different things here on the checkout page. You can make a prepayment. A lot of accountants and bookkeepers add a prepaid amount, $100, $200, whatever they think they're going to file for the season here, because then you don't have to enter your credit card information on this page. You can just have it debit from the prepay. You can, though, enter your credit card and you can save that card for future payments. And then if you have a saved credit card, it will show up here and you'll just check the box to hit that credit card, and you'll click pay and submit to e-file, and it will initiate that process. So in my scenario, I have the 4 forms that I've got. I'm e-filing those, I'm mailing those, I've got a state filing fee, so it tells you what all the different fees are that are being applied there. I can go through that payment process and get all that out and understand what I'm doing. When I come back in later, if I chose that save card details, then it will be here. One of the reasons that a lot of times accountants and bookkeepers don't do that is because we have some who do multiple thousands of submissions every year, and so they don't want every $11 charge or $18 charge or $5 charge going to the credit card, and so they'll just put that larger amount on the prepay and then debit from the prepay, so their credit card only gets one entry as opposed to a bunch of different entries. You can always add more prepay funds later if you need to. So we're going to pretend for a minute that I'd clicked pay and submit to e-file. I'm not actually going to do it. We're going to pretend that I did that. Once I do that, then back on my dashboard, I'm going to have a submitted status for one of my filings. And so I'm going to show you here that, nope, I'm not actually going to have any submitted ones here. Let me go back to my other page here where I do have submitted files. This is why you keep multiple accounts. You can do different things in each one when you're testing. So I've got these submitted files. These are things that I've done inside of Tax 1099 this year for the 2019 season. You can see the form types and such. So this filing here is a miscellaneous filing. I'm going to click view, and it's going to take me in to my manage forms page. So I clicked view from the dashboard, and it's taking me in to that particular client, that particular year, and it's showing me everything I've done for that client. I could also have navigated over here under my forms and manage forms page. So I can get to it multiple different ways. Out here, we're showing what you've done. So I've got my scheduled date out here. These I scheduled as in kind of pretending that I have a an 8809 on file, so I scheduled it out to the deadline date plus the 30 days extension. So the system will let you go that far out into the future. And I can take a look at any one of the forms. I'm going to find one of the miscellaneous forms. We've been doing a lot of testing on various form types, as you can see. But here I've got a miscellaneous form. I've got a miscellaneous corrected form. I've got different forms. So this must be a box 7. And I, again, did the 30 days. So to the deadline plus 30 days gives me March 1st. This is what my form will look like. This is the PDF copy that comes with your purchase. When you pay for the e-file, you get a PDF copy, and it looks just like this. You can take it down. I exposed the taxpayer identification number on mine, but you can default that, or we actually default that to truncate on the miscellaneous forms and other 1099 versions, so that these first 5 digits are XXX as opposed to showing the number. Just for security, the IRS suggests that you do that. You can also turn that off, so you can expose that 10 if that's something that you need to do. But this form has everything that they need on it. It's got the instructions. It's got the copy for the recipient, and you can just fold that down and put it into an envelope yourself if that's how you want to handle that. Oops, sorry, wrong one. I can also see what date I submitted that form on, and then I can also see if I requested mail for that form. So I've got, again, just some information here that kind of helps me go through and understand what I've done. If I requested email, you'll see that email was sent here. And if I did a state filing, then you'll see the state filing box checked there as well. So again, just lots of different things that we have available for you out here to track back and see. Because you or your client, you'll get that request where they'll say, I need to prove my income for last year, and I need to be able to show to the IRS that I made X number of dollars. And so you can come back here and you can print this form. It'll be out here for 3 years that you have access to it right in line, and then we store it for 4 more years in case you need it later as well. But through the user interface, it'll be there for those 3 years.
And we had a question come in about, can you print multiple 1099s at one time?
Yes, so you can do that here. Scroll back up. I've got, well, again, a lot of testing, but if you choose all of the forms here, this download all PDF is what I usually suggest for that. What that does, and I'm going to pick a form type because we'll do each one of the form types. I'm just going to do the recipient copy in this case, but we're going to produce out a zip file, and that zip file is going to have one form type in it. Here we go. And so this is my class act. That's my company. These are the payees. And so if I open that, I don't even know how many miscellaneous forms. So I've got 6 miscellaneous forms. So you've got all of them in one PDF. And so you can just print that PDF directly to whatever your printer is. So you just get one shot there at the printer. So you don't have to go back and forth doing each one of them individually.
Perfect.
So a couple more things on this page. If you have one of those clients who has just a bunch of people, I'm just gonna look for George here. So George Griffin, I'm sending him lots of different form types here, but you can skinny it down and just see the one person that you want to see. Unmasking the 10 I mentioned, so you can do that in bulk. If you want to expose that taxpayer identification number on the forms, you're able to do that by clicking here. If I need to mail a copy to somebody, they got a copy, they lost it, I can go here, I can do the USPS mail, and we'll charge you for that service here. It'll push that form out to that recipient. You can email the forms from here as well. So the guy calls up and says, hey, I didn't get my form in the mail, but I need it. You can go email the copy to the recipient. So again, lots of things that you can do out here on this manage forms page, because this is where you go to do those various tasks that may come up after the actual filing has been started. So you may also get the opportunity to do a corrected form. So let's move forward in time. Let's say it's May of next year, and some of these people have finally started to open their 1099s. They submitted their extension for their 1040 or for their business filing, and they just stuck everything in a drawer and didn't worry about it. And now they're coming to you as their bookkeeper, their accountant, and saying, okay, it's time to do taxes. Let's get going on this. And they finally open the 1099 and it's got the wrong amount on it. So we give you the chance to come in here and do corrected filings. There's really two different types of corrections that you may find yourself doing. The really base level of correction is just the amounts wrong. They got a 1099 that says I got paid $10,000, but $1,000 of that was actually materials charges instead of services, and so it should only be $9,000 that they got. And they could do something with that on their 1040. They could expense it out or whatever, but they may just really want that corrected copy. And so if you go into the 1099 miscellaneous, then you can pull, because you've already created a form in Tax 1099 for that person, you can pull up the record of that person and you can do a corrected filing for that person. And now I'm just lollygagging here. There we go. So the box at the top, just like on a paper form, we put the corrected box at the top. So if this is one of those Class Act people, then I've got the Class Act payer there. I've got all the recipients that are in here. So if Ann is the one who contacted me, I'm going to check the box here. And so it's going to tell me I need to enter something for one of those. It could be that you submitted a form for someone and they were actually a C corporation, or maybe all the payments were not services rendered, but were reimbursements, and they want a 0 on that. So you can void the form out as well. But doing that amount is just basically the easiest thing. If they had gotten 15,000, but it was supposed to be 10,000, then you just put the dollar figure in there. When you click Save and Continue, it's going to take you back out to that same checkout page. You can choose to have a copy mailed to them or attend that. You can do all those same things that we saw before. So doing a corrected filing is as easy as that. I'm going to flip back over to the forms for a second, because this is also where, if you have a client who just needs to do maybe one dividend form or one interest form, or they've got some real estate property and need to do a one form 1098 or two forms of something, then you can do those forms easily manually here. So the 1099 interest form, you might have done miscellaneous forms for this client, and so they're already in here as one of your payers, as one of your clients. Or it could be that this is a brand new person. They're not somebody that you've done a filing for in the past, and so you just need to add their information in. So manually putting the information in, it's just a form that you put the information in for that payer. Same thing for the recipients. If you've got a new recipient for this year and they're not in an accounting software, you just pick if it's a business, pick if it's an individual. We give you different name fields there depending on the business or individual selection. And so you would put in and enter their information, and so they would have all their information there for what you need. Now this person obviously doesn't have all the information, so we tell you, hey, you're missing some stuff here in this particular one. I've got this one in because I used this to create a W-9 for someone earlier, and they just haven't submitted the W-9. So that's what that would look like for going about doing this this particular type of form. And so you enter your interest, income, enter all the other fields that are there. And again, same process. Save and Continue pushes you to the checkout page. You'll also notice that on each one of these manual form entries, you've got the Save and Add New. In this case, it's the interest form, but you would have, if you're in a miscellaneous, you do a miscellaneous. And so you can just do an ongoing process, and it keeps the payer information intact here, and just lets you pick which recipient you want to go to. And so you go right through that process for creating multiple forms. Try to streamline it a little bit there so that you've got the ability to just do those manual form entries as you might need to. All right, so I want to go back to QuickBooks Desktop, because I know Kathy had a question about QuickBooks Desktop. I don't think I'm going to have time to go through the actual process, because trying to pull up QuickBooks would probably kill my my computer at this minute. But
Yeah.
For QuickBooks Desktop, we've got, like I said, a couple of different ways that you can go through the process. And again, my computer's dragging with the GoToWebinar, but we'll pop a survey up here in just a minute. that'll take you through a few questions about which method you may want to use. We've got a plugin, and the plugin is basically a downloadable, executable file that establishes a menu option in QuickBooks Desktop under your vendor menu. And once that's established in QuickBooks Desktop, you pull open your QuickBooks Desktop and go to a company file. It'll ask if you want to share the information through the plugin. You say yes, and then you can push the information over, and it brings you right back to that page with the red and green dots. So every import we do brings you back to that page with the red and green dots, and it just gives you the opportunity to validate that information. This is that survey that I mentioned, and so it'll just take you through and ask you some questions. Are you using one of the supported versions of QuickBooks Desktop? I'm going to say yes. Are you on a firewall? I'm going to say no. So we ask you some questions about how your QuickBooks is structured, and then give you a suggestion at the end of it. So, for example, here, if I've got that client who's in an old version of QuickBooks Desktop, then you want to use the import Excel to import the forms. We've got a version of the process that does that. We've got a two-file method that lets you just export your vendor contact report, your vendor summary report, and your 1099 summary, and import those here into Tax 1099. The vendor contact requires a little bit of modification, and we've got some instructions on what to do down here for getting that vendor contact report updated. But I was talking about the plugin. So we've got the plugin that sits there. We've also got a web connector, which you're probably familiar with from other tools. But you can use the web connector, you can use the plugin, or you can use that Excel import method, and they all work. They all work very well. Basically, your computer or your QuickBooks desktop determines which one you may choose to do. I get a question fairly commonly too. I have a client who's on Bill.com, but they're also on QuickBooks Online, or they're on Bill.com, but they also use QuickBooks Desktop or whatever. And the question is, which one of those do I use to import my data? Do I use Bill.com, or do I use my QuickBooks file for that company? And my answer is use whichever one has the most complete information. So if you've got a client that's using Bill.com and they're doing all payments through Bill.com, and Bill.com is connected to QuickBooks Online, you're going to get the same information from both sources because they did all their payments in Bill.com and everything flowed over to QuickBooks Online. But if you've got that client who's doing most of their payments in Bill.com, and then they're writing some checks out of QuickBooks and maybe printing the checks or handwriting some checks even, and then they're not entering them into Bill.com, they're just putting them in QuickBooks, then you would want to use the QuickBooks to do that as opposed to Bill.com, because Bill.com is not going to have a full representation of all of the information that you have that client has paid throughout the course of the year. So wherever that information is most complete is where you want to have that information pulled from for your service. The Excel spreadsheet is another method for pulling the information in, and so we use this. We have a lot of pretty large enterprise users who use this to pull information from. They pull information from their ERP and then they put it into a spreadsheet format. But it also works very well if you have a client, maybe a new client that you're just putting on the QuickBooks for next year. They're not on QuickBooks yet, but they've got a lot of information on a spreadsheet, and so they can just come in. They can provide you with that information for their 1099 miscellaneous filings. There's a downloadable template here in either CSV or Excel. I would recommend Excel because the Excel version is going to give you some tips and tricks, is what I call it, for that template. So if I go here to my template, the Excel version is going to tell you anything in red is something that I need to have for that. But like my payer may not have a first name, they may just have a business name, so the first name wouldn't necessarily be required. It also tells you, there's in these flyovers, what type of information we're expecting there. So your payer business name can't be a DBA, it's got to be their business name or a legal name. The payer type is going to be either business or individual, and that's going to be determined by their social security number or EIN if they're whichever one they're entering there. So the Excel version just gives you a little bit more to go on because it is an Excel version. The CSV is just going to be the headers in the record there. You can always save it as CSV if you want to do your import. But the import process really works the same way. Once you've got that file ready to go, and I've got a number of them. Just pick one here. I'm going to start a new import because I again do testing all the time. So I'm going to import this. If I needed to do these as corrected, I even have the option here to make these a corrected filing. And I'm going to click next. With the Excel import, there's one extra step because what we do is we look at your spreadsheet and we identify if we recognize what that field is, because you may have typed up a spreadsheet yourself and put headers on it yourself. If we don't recognize what it is, we'll put it in a box like this. It'll have a yellow with a red outline, and we just give you the options where you can go through and you can say, this is what I mean. I put this, but I meant this. And so you can put that in there. If you're using our template though, you don't have to worry about any of that. All the fields are already mapped, and I'm just going to click next because everything was present for me there. When I click next, like I mentioned before, anytime you do an import, you're going to get to the import grid with the green and the red dots. And so here I can see I've got a yellow dot next to my payer information. That means I've got something wrong in a recipient somewhere. I've only got 10 on here, so it's pretty easy to tell which one it is. But if you had a file that had 100 or 200 different recipients on there, you can filter out and only see the ones that are going to cause a problem. I can open that up and I can see immediately where the problem is. I've got a city and a zip code, but I didn't have a state in for that particular one there. I can also download that error list so I know what's missing, because wherever my source data was, I might want to go back and fix that later. But if I fix it here, then I'm going to get it fixed, get it ready to go for my form filing here. I don't have anything here because again, this is real time. It's kind of updating everything as I go. I'm going to clear my filter. And so I've got all green dots and I'm ready to move forward just like we saw earlier. So lots of different ways you can get the information in there. Again, lots of different reports that you can use to pull information out, and support here for when you need to contact us to do something.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is how does support work?
Yeah, generally, this under this contact us option down here, that's where you want to go. That puts you in touch with our chat service, which is the most efficient way to get in touch with us. We can also do some calls out to you if we need to schedule a time, maybe to go through and talk about how to get the QuickBooks Desktop plugin installed, or if you just have some general questions, you can get in touch with us that way. If you have a large number of filings, 1,000 or more, if you're into that type of filing, then somebody on our sales team can also talk to you about pricing volume discounts.
Perfect. And how early can we actually file 1099s?
You can file anytime. So we released the 2019 versions on, gosh, I want to say mid-November. It might have been earlier than that, but we've had the 2019 versions out for a while. So you can submit through our software at any time. They actually won't go to the IRS until at least January the 10th. Now, the IRS fire system is in their switchover period. So I think they started on the 6th of December. They closed off uploads to switch over from the 2018 to the 2019 season, and they'll start back up on January 10th. So if you file it with us now, we'll just hold it until January the 10th or whatever date you schedule it, and then we'll send it to the IRS on that next available date.
And it's nice how, yeah, in the system it shows you that too, like when it'll actually be sent and everything. Um, and then also you can get confirmations that it's been accepted from the IRS.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we send you an email when you submit it, and then we send you an email once the IRS accepts it. And so those will just go to your registered email address in Tax 1099. And then again, you still have access to that here in the dashboard and in our reports, and you can see what the status is on any of the filings that you might have done.
Yeah, and I have a little control sheet that I do, and I'm looking back at it, and it's like I can go back and look at the emailed status, so I can see if they've opened it or not, which always freaks me out if they're not getting it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I do. Yeah, all the yeah my e-file schedule date, return accepted. So I put all these things into my little spreadsheet so I can just make sure everything is done and taken care of. So it's awesome.
All right. Well,
And
if
we did have the one comment too from Sharon Miller saying that support has always been very responsive, and she was thanking you
yeah,
guys for that.
great. Thanks for that, Sharon. Appreciate that. And we will, be in touch with folks if you want us to. So we'll be happy to talk to you later if you have any more questions that we weren't able to fit in during the session.
Perfect. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I can pass it along to Ed and his team. And yeah, that's we got everything. And I hope that everyone has a uneventful 1099 season so that it's not too crazy and we get through it okay. I know it's usually that last, like you said, the last week or even that last week before, it just, yeah, it just turns horrible. So,
It really blows up that end. Procrastination is the name of the game. So don't be that
yes.
guy.
And it's always, yeah, trying to get the W-9s and everyone from everyone
Yeah.
else. Like you have everything, but it's just like, oh, come on, finish. So, it's like, yeah, those clients can drive us crazy sometimes, but we got it. We take care of them, so it's all good. So thank you again for doing this demo. Like I said, I've been using you guys for several years. I love it. The best part that I don't think we necessarily got to cover is that all this information is saved in here, so I can use the same recipients next year, and
Mhm.
it makes things faster each and every year. And I actually saw someone, if anyone was curious about pricing, I know there's a lot of different things you can talk about pricing out 1099 services, but I liked how someone actually charges a higher fee for the first year of doing 1099s for their clients and then a lower fee the following years since they already have a lot of the information already into the system. So thought that was a little tidbit that was fun.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, you had mentioned that to me, and I totally forgot about that. So I'm glad that you mentioned it.
Yeah, I like that. So thank you again. And this recording will be available on the website later. And yeah, definitely, guys, reach out if you have any questions or anything. I'll make sure to pass them along to Ed and his team. So thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Kathy, and thanks everyone. I appreciate it.
Okay, y'all have a great day. Bye.
Bye.